All right, welcome to the Jim Acosta Show. It's another day that ends in Y and Donald Trump's continued detachment from the real world. He's now rambling about magnets, if you can believe that. Meanwhile, Democrats are still furious that some in the party broke ranks with Republicans to end the government shutdown. Let's discuss with my first big guest this hour, James Carville. A little later, I'll have Pod Save America's Dan Pfeiffer and the great Liz Oyer. But, James, let me go to you on all of this. I mean, it seems to me Trump learned a lesson on how this shutdown ended. He seems to have gotten the message that it's okay to take hostages. And he was telling Fox, of Chuck Schumer, he thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him. What did you think about how this played out? What's the lesson learned here?
Well, first of all, the lesson is everything that everybody says is true.
Yeah.
That there was not a real in-game plan here. It was a simple legislative maneuvering that we didn't do that well on. There were a couple of points, and also the 8 senators who decided to reopen the government, everything they say is true. It's just one of these things where pick your favorite truth. It's the old line, Jim, with a guy being sworn in the courtroom in somewhere in rural North Louisiana saying, "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?" And he looks up and says, "Which one you want, Judge?" Okay.
That's true. That's a good
And,
point.
and, and this is just one of those things that I'm not mad at anybody on the Democratic side, and no one on the Democratic side should be mad at anybody else on the Democratic side. And I did RA Melba last night, and I said, you got to 1900 hours Wednesday, that's 7 o'clock Eastern, to vent all you want and then shut up. Okay, and let's move on.
Well, but I got you on here anyway, so we can't
Right.
shut up just
But
yet.
I'm not. But I'm not just. I got till 7 o'clock tomorrow night
Oh,
Eastern.
okay. So we got some time. All right, we got some
Right.
time. So
Right.
was this even? I mean, should they have just passed a CR to begin with and not done this from the get-go? Was it? I mean, to me, you had to know that Trump was going to hold SNAP hostage, that he was going to try to hold federal workers hostage, and that if you
Right.
give this thing up now, you just tell them, okay, you can just do it over and over again. That's
So
my question.
So, and my answer is this, and it'll take me 90 seconds, but
Yeah,
bear with
no
me.
problem. It's
If
okay.
you're a Democrat, you're in a coalition.
Yeah,
Okay. In other words, Maggie Hassan is in the same coalition. Well, Mandami is not a Democrat, but let's say Mandami
yeah,
just for purposes of look. So when you're in a coalition, you have different tensions within the coalition.
yeah,
And when you negotiate with a cult, and understand that is what the Republican Party is today. It's a cult. It's not, it had nothing to do with Reagan or any of that other crap that I grew up with.
yeah,
You're at a severe disadvantage. And, when people are Democrats, and I'm one since the early ages, more moved by civil rights, but there's a little bit of, you're not the boss of me, God damn it. Okay. And
yeah.
we don't value orthodoxy and adherence to the leader in the same way that Republicans do, because that's why one of the reasons that we're not Republicans is
Right.
what you're not the boss of me kind of attitude.
Yeah. They're going to be a little all over the place. And Tim Kaine said that. Tim Kaine said, "Hey, I'm from Virginia. I represent Virginia. I got a lot of federal workers in Virginia, so he's going to do what's best for those federal workers in Virginia." But
Yeah.
but if you're going to hold out for health care subsidies and Obamacare, it seems to me, and then you give that up on the promise of a vote, that of course it's going to be Lucy in the football. They're not going to have that vote, or they're yeah, I mean, what's the point?
I'll tell you the point. You really have the issue. It's
Yeah,
like a 73% issue, and you have a clear distinction. And if I thought this is how, I don't say I'm naive. I thought if I were Republican, I'd take this, because if you don't have it, it's going to really hurt a lot of people I need to vote for me in a fundamental way. And I can just say the Democrats held me hostage. The Democrat, I wouldn't, I think they had an exit ramp here, and now they've just shut the exit ramp down, and
yeah,
there's no, it's interstate that goes into infinity. So I actually thought politically the best decision they could have made was claim that the Democrats are political terrorists, but we got to vote for this, and they would have been out of the trap. But they hate it so much it's irrational. And I thought,
yeah,
yeah, I guess uh, Schumer thought, Hakeem or somebody thought this was too good a deal for them to pass up. I mean, this was an offer they couldn't refuse, but
Yeah.
they refused it.
And what about, I mean, you're hearing from a lot of Democrats saying, I mean, they were ready for Chuck Schumer to go a while ago. And what's your sense of that?
And I was asked yesterday about it, and I say
Yeah.
the same thing. I've never had much of an opinion on internal congressional politics, and 24
Yeah.
Democratic senators conclude everything. They decide everything. Uh, so I'll just leave it at that, and whatever
Yeah.
decision they make, I'll do. But I have enough fights. I don't need a fight with the
Well,
Democrats in the Senate or anything.
I hear what you're saying. But what about, James, what about the notion that Democrats were looking pretty damn good coming out of last week? And you had Trump saying the shutdown was hurting us.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you let him out of that bear trap that he stepped in. No,
Yeah.
you're not so sure.
Remember what Warden Norton said when Andy Dufresne escaped? He said it's gone just like a fart in the wind. That's in the whole thing. When this is looked back on 6 months from now,
Yeah.
it'll be a fart in the wind. All right, and it gives everybody a chance. And you're right, but I don't think, could be wrong, this is going to change very much. You're going to have a lot. You're going to have a lot of. I don't know what I'd have done if I was sent to Kane or if I was sent to Hassan. Okay, clearly Senator Durbin was not running for reelection.
Yeah.
I don't know of a better Democrat that I've ever known than Senator Durbin. And what these guys would say is, man, we were hurting people. I mean, this was not, we didn't need it. And that was a conclusion that they reached. I can't say that the people who oppose that don't have a point, but I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think anybody's going to, none of these people are up for reelection. And again, I'll go back to Schumer is a hard job. He's leading a coalition. Thune just has to sit there, or Johnson just have to sit there and do what Trump tells them. They don't have
Yeah.
a choice. So we had certain disadvantages, but I think the disadvantages are things that I like about being a Democrat.
Yeah. Well, and if there's one silver lining in all of this, it's that Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in. She's
Yes,
apparently been told she gets sworn in.
they
She's
got
the
to come back.
decisive. That's right.
They couldn't. Mikey Barr's got to bring them back, and when they bring them back, because when they cross the Potomac, you've done this a billion times. You've
Yeah.
landed at National Airport, and when they look at the Potomac, it's going to be the corpse of Jeffrey Epstein rising and floating down the river, just like Rasputin. Okay, yes, that is very true, and that is an important ancillary benefit of this. And the
Yeah.
corpse will be floating in the Potomac, and they'll all see it and know what they're faced with.
And how much of this shutdown do you think had to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Because I think there was some, it may not have been the whole thing, but I think that this, do you get any sense that, I mean, maybe it's just me. I think Donald Trump wanted this shutdown. He needed this shutdown. They were on the, I
I
mean,
don't.
remember how much momentum there was? 218 votes for this.
So, um, I,
Is that a little
when
too
it comes to
conspiratorial?
Trump, when it comes
Yeah.
to Trump, I always am willing to give him the stupidity benefit. Like even on the Great Gatsby party, do you really think he knows who the Great Gatsby was or anything about the Great Gatsby? Of course you
That's a
don't.
good
He
point.
goes, he goes to the Washington Commanders football game. He actually thinks he's popular. And he didn't even look at the election returns
That's
in Northern
wild. It's
Virginia.
true.
He lost the district by what, 89-11? He actually thought he was going to be applauded.
Yeah.
Right?
He was sending
He
those federal
doesn't,
workers to food lines not far from that stadium,
right
by the way.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't know shit. Okay. You got to understand that. The man is just massively ignorant.
Yeah.
And and what he loves is he loves turmoil. He doesn't care about the Republican Party. These people are giving their allegiance to. You think he cares one iota about Mike Johnson? Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But they're trapped. But he doesn't know. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's manifestly, I can't say stupid, but when it comes to anything about culture or modern America or anything. He's just massively ignorant.
Yeah.
Just
And I
is.
do think that there is something wrong with him. There's some, I mean, it's, and I said this at the top, he's becoming more and more detached from reality in a way that is striking to me. And there was an interview that he did just recently where he was talking about the gold in the White House, and I guess Laura Ingraham was asking about all the gold everywhere inside the Oval Office. Let's play a little bit of that, just because I think a couple of things kind of highlight what I'm talking about here. If we can play that.
That imitates.
So these aren't like from Home Depot or something?
No, this is not Home Depot stuff.
No,
This is-
not stuff you buy.
This is not Home Depot. The one thing with gold,
Why not
you
silver?
you can't imitate gold. There's no paint.
James, he really wants people to believe that that is real gold on the walls of the Oval Office there. I mean, we all know that that is not the case.
You can't.
Well, first of all,
Real gold.
where I grew up, and I suspect you probably grew up under some kind of similar things. It was thought that people should be dignified, or certain people had taste. But it was
Yeah.
my daughter is an interior designer. My wife would be very good if that's what she chose to do. I mean,
Absolutely.
and they, I don't want to speak. I never speak for my wife, but my daughter would literally. She probably, barf at the sight of that. I mean, in the whole thing about it particularly America, when you look at what they did to the East Wing,
Yeah.
Washington is justifiably a city of Republican architecture. I mean, small R. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't do Buckingham Palace. Okay,
Right.
we don't do things that they do in wherever they had monarchs. We do our architecture is
Versailles
very
or whatever.
upstate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason why he doesn't even understand that. He doesn't understand why there's not gold trim and massive columns in front of the White House. Why it's
Right.
just kind of elegant, semi-Renaissance art.
Yeah.
That's on purpose.
Right.
And,
The
and, and,
founders didn't want it,
then what?
palaces and
By the
yeah.
way, we don't even have tall buildings.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of like that. I lived in Washington for a long time. Every time I go there, I fly into, do the approach from the north to the National Airport. I always try to sit
Mhm.
on the port side of the airplane. And every time I see the city, it excites me because it's a
Yeah.
beautiful place. And he doesn't know any of that. He has no idea
No.
of,
Yeah.
of any of that. He actually thinks gold commodes are something glamorous.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to realize that how gauche he is. I mean, it just is so. I don't even sound like, because I'm not a particularly educated or cultured person, but it's is it pedestrian, the word I'm looking at? No, it's
I
not
think
even that. No,
pedestrian. Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's way worse than that.
It's
I
way
think
worse.
pedestrian.
It's
Yeah, I
way
can't.
worse.
I'll think of a word here if I go long enough. But it's
But I mean,
just
you worked in the White House and we're around the White. I mean, just the thought of the East Wing being demolished like that. I mean, it tells you what we're dealing with, what we're up against. And
everybody that's worked in the White House have been there always has the same impression. It's very small, and I
yeah,
think that's on purpose.
yeah,
It's not, but it's tasteful, but not much more. I mean, I've been in a lot of offices or a lot of houses that are more magnificent than you would see in the West Wing or even the East Wing, for that matter. And that's the whole point. But he will never understand that. He just can't understand it.
and I mean, because he has no respect and has no regard for our republic. I mean, you've been talking about some ideas lately as to what Democrats should do when they get back in power. You've seen the Supreme Court go rogue. You've seen the Republican Party take control of the Congress and just go along with Trump doing every outrageous thing under the sun. What your thoughts on how Democrat? I mean, yep, this didn't work out the way they wanted with the shutdown, but midterms 2028.
Again, go back to Ward Norton, a fought no
Yeah,
end. Okay, I'll tell
yeah,
you what was not, was Bush v. Gore.
yeah,
And that told them that you can steal an election and there not going to be any consequences. The entire establishment of the United States folded like a cheap suit. Well, the Supreme Court's broken. And well, then we don't have any other choice. And from that came Shelby County. From that came all of the other things that you see now that we are, particularly when it comes to redistricting, we're going to do it just because we can, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is 18% of the United States elects 52 senators. Shove it. That's just the way it is. And my point is there are two things that you can do legislatively, and you can do them quickly. There's nowhere that it's chiseled in marble that the Supreme Court shall have 9 members. I think at one time it actually had 7, but I don't want to, not that good a historian. And there's nothing or reason you can't say it goes to 13. It don't cost that much. You can do that. And there's nothing that says that Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia can't become states. They're part of, under the jurisdiction of the United States. Why not make them states? If you do, then you at least address the problem of Senate imbalance, which you're not going to ever be able to address constitutionally because they're not going to, 3/4 of the states. Well, Wyoming is not going to vote itself out of power with California. It's just not going to happen. But there are legislative remedies. And all of the constitutional amendments about popular vote, they're all great guys. I love them. You're literally pissing up a rope if you're trying to change the Constitution to disadvantage smaller states.
But that means, James, you're optimistic about 26 and you're optimistic about 28.
I
You're
am.
optimistic.
I'm very, very, very. And you can't look at the recent election returns, or you can't look at the polling and not be. One of the things in the spring of 2023, I looked at the polling with Biden and I said, this is a disaster. We're going to lose. We're going to do something. And I was very
I remember.
about that.
Yep.
This is a bigger disaster for Trump than the spring of 2023 was for President Biden. If you look at it, in little tricks that you do is you see if there's differential. So approve or disapprove of immigration. He might be getting a 54% approval on immigration. The economy is getting 38%. Well, that tells you that they got a good sample and people are answering questions selectively. And when you look at him, he doesn't know it. No one will tell him. He's massively unpopular. The margin in these races was just utterly breathtaking. And I was as you were at the Barnett Memorial Service, which was the day
Bob
before
Barnett.
for my lawyer, and it was everybody in Washington. It was widely assumed, and everybody said, "Well, sure, Spanberger's going to win, but New Jersey, I'm not sure."
Exactly. That's right.
Campaign. Shirley has a better campaign. It was the same. It didn't matter. They said, "Well, it was affordability." In California, they got 64%. This was, and I always believe that I've done quite well on reminding people that elections, first and foremost, are always about economic conditions. I think that cruelty and corruption played a role in this. I really do. And I think the evidence is on my side. I think
And how so? Yeah.
Well, you look at the California results. I mean, affordability was not on the ballot. And most impressively was Pennsylvania, where the Supreme Court retention, we got 62%. We got 25% in Erie County, which is literally impossible. It defies gravity. No candidate in Erie County for president has gotten even 52 in this century. It's so swing. It's the swingiest place in the swingiest state.
And Abigail Spanberger, I saw, won Loudoun County, Virginia by 29. I mean,
that was Loudoun County. That's Dulles Airport, just so to give people a reference.
Yeah. It's pretty close to DC, but not that right.
Yeah, not that close. It's very ex-urban, but it's rural areas in Loudoun too. It was always a blowout. Big Republican. Yeah, not just a win, a breathtaking blowout. Yeah, I think she got 89% in Alexandria City.
Yeah, and the Republican for Attorney General, Jason Miyares, who we thought
6.
he was going to win because the other guy had those terrible.
I tell people I want to find a twice convicted child molester and running for Congress against a Republican. I think we could win. I think you guys
I
look. I
think you
made a
got
couple
better
mistakes.
candidates than that, James. I think
I
you
think
got.
so too. I'm being provocative here.
I know you're being provocative.
But we did.
Let the other
guy did
side deal
run
with
the
that,
thing,
James.
and they ran 1 million spots on it, and they won by anyone even close.
Yeah. It's unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah.
And is it and I thought I saw some polls that showed people cared about democracy. I mean, we were all told nobody cares about that anymore. Stop talking about that. I think people do care about that. And they're freaked out about that. And this no kings thing is evidence that they care about that. Or is
I
it
think
pure Trump hatred? What do you
again, two things are possible and true at the
Yeah,
same time.
there you go. Yeah.
Okay, but I think what people like care about is democracy. I'm not sure exactly what it means to people, and I don't. No one knows what an oligarch is. So let's just get that behind us.
Bernie Sanders
Everybody's
likes to put it
starting.
on all his signs and
I
everything.
understand, and
Yeah.
Bernie, bless his soul, is into the language of the proletariat. But the rest of us who don't know what the proletariat is don't know what an oligarch is. All right,
I don't know what that is either.
the
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
just out there trying to make it who don't view themselves as a
yeah.
potential rising class in America. But I think if people have heard it, but what they don't like is the way that he doesn't pay attention to laws.
Yeah.
And I think the best way is, the other day I got a speeding ticket. You know what I got to do? I got to go down. I got to pay it. It's got to go. My insurance company's got to be notified. I get a point against it. That's the way that most people live. He does not live like that.
Yeah.
He does not feel constrained or answerable to the law. By the way, I did get a speeding ticket. Chicken
Yeah.
shit. I was doing like 37 and a 25.
You got to say if James, if you're going to get a ticket, man, go for the gold.
I know. I got,
Break some
yeah.
records out there or something.
There you go.
James, thanks for joining us on this Veterans Day. Great to talk to you as
man.
always.
You bet.
All
Take
right,
care.
good to see you. All right,
Yeah,
thanks,
bet.
James. You too. All right, bye-bye. The great James Carville, and we did run into each other at a memorial service recently, and people were basically saying they didn't feel so good about those elections last week, and then you saw what took place. I want to bring in somebody who also just has his pulse on a lot of things. Is Dan Pfeiffer. Dan, I'm sorry to make you go after James.
That's tough. It's a tough act
you're
to
not going
follow.
to be as colorful. You're not going to say things that might get my show canceled on multiple platforms.
I'll try not to.
Yeah, but it's great to see you again. And I wanted to have you on, Dan, because I mean, first of all, I mean, you and I have known each other a long time, and I just haven't had, and I thought, oh yeah, I need to have Dan on. But I read your Substack on the shutdown thing, and I thought this is very important, and I just want to read it to folks at home what I read from Dan, and it makes a lot of sense. Which is the gist is, yes, everybody's pissed, everybody's upset, but you have to move on. And the number one thing that you wrote in your Substack on this was that, and it's called the message box for folks who don't have it. They should subscribe to it. It says, number one, the 8 Democrats that cut the deal should stop talking. Several of the Democrats who voted to open the government have been on a media tour. They held a press conference on Sunday night and then made the rounds on cable trying to sell the deal. They're doing a terrible job. I think that's exactly right. And in particular, it was Angus King who said standing up to Trump didn't work. I mean, I just please don't say things like that. As somebody who has tried to do that, I just wish people wouldn't say that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really, I watched the press conference on Sunday night. I watched a lot of the cable appearances, and it's just, they're not the best messengers to begin with. They don't have a very good message here, and it's really just inflaming matters, and I'm not sure who it's helping, but I'm pretty sure it's hurting a lot of people.
Yeah. And so what was your main takeaway from all of this? Because to me, my overarching thing is, and I know everybody has a hot take and none of them are very good, or some of them are good. Mine probably aren't, but that if you reward hostage taking, you're going to get more hostage taking. And it seems to me, if you're going to go down this road with him and demand things and hang in there, and so you can't just fold on a Sunday evening when nobody's expecting it. But that's just, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. Look, it's possible that Trump and the Republicans of Congress would have just hurt as many people as they possibly could for as long as they possibly could to avoid extending these Obamacare tax credits. But if you're going to be willing to shut down the government and have a fight, you have to be willing to endure pain. And it may be a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, would have been the time to decide that this can't go on any further. But this was the point of maximum leverage for Democrats.
Yeah.
We had Trump himself was the one who believed that the shutdown cost the Republicans these elections.
Right.
The polling was beginning to show that because of the flight cancellations, because of the SNAP payments, that people who had not been paying a lot of attention were now tuning in. The political pressure was ratcheting up on Republicans, and we should have played this out longer to see if we could have gotten a better deal, because essentially they shut it down for nothing.
Right, exactly. And it was sort of like, well, why he was just getting booed at the Commanders game.
Yeah.
And then they backed down. I didn't understand that. But I think you're absolutely right about that, Dan, that the politics were sort of shifting in their direction. And it's making me think back to when you were there with the Obama days and so on. You guys had Harry Reid, if I'm not mistaken, and
that's
you
right.
had Nancy Pelosi, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, talk about you kind of had your cup runneth over, I suppose, in terms of Democratic strategists up on Capitol Hill. Is it that the Democrats don't have that this time around, that maybe Schumer's just not the same kind of poker player that Harry Reid was? What do you think?
I think it's a couple things. One, I think the Democrats were never truly united on what this shutdown was about, right? I think they were more interested in shutting it down, and there were people who wanted to shut it down for these Obamacare tax credits. Others wanted to shut it down because of the ICE raids or Trump's authoritarianism or things like that. And so there wasn't ever this unanimity around one specific thing that could hold people together. And, Schumer was not in an easy position here by any stretch of the imagination, but to lose 8 members of your caucus, to have them negotiate directly with John Thune, the Republican leader, and the Trump White House is a sign of one of two things to me. Either Schumer was tacitly okay with the government reopening, or he has lost total control of his caucus. Because that is, it's nearly 20% of his caucus abandoned him here. And it's hard to see that ever happening to Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell when he was the Republican leader.
Yeah. No, and I mean, to me, this idea that they were holding out for the Obamacare subsidies, I thought, hey, that's a noble policy goal. That's fine, and it sort of emphasizes the affordability message and so on. But could be a whole hell of a lot more things that could be thrown into that basket, other than the Affordable Care Act at that moment. And the other thing that I just didn't quite understand in terms of how it ended was there was a promise of a vote on these Obamacare subsidies, and I'm just reading this in Politico this afternoon, Dan, that I mean, already Republicans in the Senate are talking about their own plans for what they want to do. Republicans appear to be quickly pivoting from the debate around the Affordable Care Act tax credits to developing their own health policy agenda. That's in Politico today. So Lucy's already pulled the football away.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think even these 8 Democrats who really wanted to get the government open for the sake of opening the government, and I think ultimately protect the appropriations process, because I think they were starting to get worried that Trump was going to convince enough Republicans to eliminate the filibuster, and they would lose all influence and on the appropriations process if it became a 50-vote process. And this vote is, I mean, there's no guarantee for the House will even hold a vote, let alone pass it. There's no guarantee that it will pass. There's no guarantee that you would get to a simple majority vote even. Right. And so this is a fig leaf at best.
Yeah. No, that's true. And it's sort of a tale as old as time. Republicans wanting to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and Trump in particular, even though he says, I'll have a plan in 2 weeks, or concepts of a plan, and then he never really has one. I wanted to ask you a little bit, Dan, about what you're thinking about in terms of last week's elections. What were your main takeaways from that? And then what does 26 look like to you? Because I haven't talked to you in ages, and I love the Pod Save America stuff, and you guys are amazing and do a great job with all of that. But I mean, there's a part of me that I'm very worried about what's going to take place next year. And I think that he's already making moves to subvert the will of the people. We're already seeing these redistricting efforts and so on. What do you take away from last week? And do you think that terrifies him enough to want to double down and really screw with next year's midterms?
Yeah. So let's start with last Tuesday. Last Tuesday was a huge, incredible night for Democrats for 2 reasons. Democratic turnout was up. So Democrats are excited, even as they are disenchanted with our leadership, or they're down on the party, or thinks maybe members of Congress aren't fighting hard enough. They turned out to vote everywhere. New Jersey, Virginia, California, Georgia, Pennsylvania, everywhere there's election, people turned out. I think most interestingly, we've won a lot of special elections in the Biden era just simply by turning out more than Republicans. Our party, the Democratic Party, now has a higher percentage of our base, our high turnout, college-educated suburban voters. We kind of look like the Republican Party of the Romney era. But what was interesting here is that this wasn't just turnout. We won these huge margins across the country because we were able to persuade Trump voters to vote for Democrats. So in New Jersey and Virginia, 7% of the people who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 voted for either Abigail Spanberger or Mike Michelle. In New York City, 12% of people who voted for Donald Trump 1 year ago voted for a Democratic socialist named Zoran Mamdani
That's right.
for mayor. And then this is, to me, the craziest one. I'm sorry, that's 9% in New York. This is the craziest one to me. In California, 12% of Trump voters voted for Gavin Newsom's redistricting initiative. 12%. And so there is clearly a set of voters who pulled the lever for Trump, probably with some measure of reluctance, because they thought he would lower their costs, and he has raised their costs and done a whole bunch of other things they did not sign up for, and they voted for Democrats. And so that bodes very well for the midterms. Obviously, we have a long time to go to get there, but it bodes well. But yes, of course, I think Donald Trump's going to do everything in his power to make it as hard for Democrats. That's why he's done the redistricting stuff. It's why his administration is pushing, and his allies are pushing in the Supreme Court to try to get Section 2 of the Voting Rights Amendment struck down before the election. And I'm not going to be surprised to see ICE agents in polling places or in communities that are Democratic turnout communities. Will we see National Guard places? Absolutely. So I think he's going to do lots of things to try to make it very hard. And it's going to be Democrats' job to do everything we can to win by as much as we can. That makes it to use a Trump phrase, too big to rig.
Yeah. No, and by the way, he just pardoned a bunch of people who were involved in trying to overturn the 2020 election, who now can go back on the battlefield and do this all over again for him, and probably will get pardons if something were to happen to them again. The other thing, you mentioned something about these Trump voters who voted Democrat, and it reminds me of this phenomenon. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on it, of Obama voters who then voted for Trump, and so could Trump voters come back and support Obama? What is that in your view? What is going on there? Are those working class Democrats? Are those Reagan Democrats? Who are they?
I think it's going to differ from state to state. In this election, it seems to have been just more traditional swing voters. These are people who pay less attention to politics generally, more likely to be working class than not, and particularly in New Jersey, more likely to be Latino than not. These are the people that Trump has brought into his coalition over the last, primarily 4 years here. Working class voters of color and young voters primarily.
And are they? So they're gettable.
Yeah, they're absolutely gettable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not going to get some people to take their MAGA hats off and become Democrats, but there is a segment of voters who are very available to Democrats in this midterm for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this guy's, his name Sean Davis. I can't remember. He's he's one of these right wing. Yeah. He's come after me. He's probably come after you.
Oh yeah.
He's kind of a nutty guy, and I say that in a colloquial way. I don't mean that in a clinical way, but he's even gone off on Trump on missing this affordability thing and just being wrong on a lot of issues. And it just there's and Margie Taylor Greene and so on. There's a little bit of an undercurrent there inside MAGA where it's just a little shaky.
Yeah, I think this is in part because Trump is fully entering his lame duck era. Yeah, even Trump has said he's not going to be on the ballot again. His approval, think about it, his approval rating is about where Joe Biden's was at this time. He's actually less popular on the economy than where Joe Biden was at this time. I think a lot of us, myself included, have been thinking about this because Trump was just elected after not being in office. We try to treat this like his first term, like his 2026 is going to be his 1994 or his 2010. Or his 2022 or whatever that is. Yeah. But it's really the
2018 was a shit show for him.
Right,
too.
2018, exactly. That's a better one, yeah. But this is his 6th year of his presidency. And presidents often recover from their bad midterm early on because there's the re-election campaign to bring the coalition back together again. That is not going to be there for Trump. And it's already splintering, right? It's the Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson mess. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's Sean Davis. It's Steve Bannon doing other things. Trump is becoming a lame duck, and because he's going to look weaker, he's going to be weaker, and that is going to have some real, short, medium, and long-term political implications.
Yeah, and which takes me to the cocktail party question that I'm sure you get asked, which is, who do you see moving forward, Dan? I'm sure you get this all the time. Dan, tell us who's going to be the nominee. Who's going to do you want to play that game? Would you rather not?
The truth is I have truly no idea. And the example I always give is, and you'll remember this because
Yep.
you've been around as long as I have, but in
Just don't
2000,
show it. But anyway.
yeah, exactly. At this point in 2005, everyone thought that the next Democratic nominee had to be a governor from a purple or red state, or someone with red state credibility, the toast of the town. This doesn't seem crazy now, but the person that everyone thought was going to be the favorite in Washington to be the 2008 Democratic nominee was Governor Mark Warner. I was
That's
working for
right.
Senator Evan Bayh, a red state senator. People are very interested in someone like that. And then 4 years later, we nominate Barack Hussein Obama, who goes on to win an electoral landslide. So we just don't really know. I watch all the people who are on the quote list of potential candidates. A lot of them were at Crooked Con, our convening in DC this past week. We saw Andy Bashir and Chris Murphy and Ruben Gallego and a bunch of others. And, they're all interesting. And, but none of them have shown me that they have like what, it is right now, right, to do it. And that's kind of what the process is going to play itself out. So I'm trying to bring a lot of humility to what it's going to take to win, who has what it's going to take to win, and what the voters are actually going to want when the time comes.
And it's because there's just something a little, something, I don't want to call it magical because that sounds weird, but there's something strange that happens when these candidates go out to these states and then just stuff starts happening.
Yep,
it happened
that's
with Obama. And I just want to play this clip of Obama. He went on to a plane full of veterans heading into Veterans Day. And can we play that clip? He was going in there and all of these veterans were just awestruck and couldn't believe he was there. Let's play a little bit of that.
Everybody, what? As we approach Veterans Day, I wanted to stop by and just say thank you for your extraordinary service. To you, your family, the sacrifices that all of you made to protect our country is something that will always be honored. And we are very grateful, and we also happen to welcome you with a 70-degree day in D.C., which doesn't always happen around here.
Last time I got to see a president, it was Gerald Ford.
How about that?
It's good to see Obama smile. I guess I should say that too. And yes, you can see my heart at the bottom of the screen. I did like that video, and I think I reposted it or something. But Dan, how do we get back to that?
We got to elect a Democrat in 2028. So that's what we got to do. What the next president of the United States cannot be a MAGA Trump acolyte. We need someone who is, and I think this is going to be a very important test for our Democratic nominee, because I think there's real political appetite here for someone who can bring us together. All right. You have to be tough. You have to be strong. You have to be able to communicate. But if you can be, my friend Sarah Longwell calls it, we need a tough unifier. We need someone with strength, but who will try to appeal to what we have in common. So I think people are going to be pretty sick of all the division by the time 2028 comes around.
And is there a quality in Obama that you say, okay, that it's this quality that you need? Or was it just, it was him in that moment and it was coming out of Bush and the Iraq war and it just worked out for him? Or is there a quality that he brings to the table? You're like, it's that.
So I'd say there are a couple of things there. Like, absolutely, the David Axelrod, Obama's advisor, always used to say, voters want the replacement, not the replica. They want sort of the opposite of what they had. And Obama was the opposite of Bush, and Trump was the opposite of Obama, and Biden was the opposite of Trump. And, so it goes like that.
Yeah.
But what I think, and Obama certainly benefited from that as being a sort of thoughtful, smart person and, coming after Bush and sort of the rash decisions to go to Iraq, et cetera. But what I think there are two qualities about him that I think are sort of that you would look for in another candidate, because you can't just say like, be as good a communicator, be a good a speaker. And the two things are comfort in his own skin. He was just very comfortable in his own skin. He didn't have the sort of ingrained insecurities that so many politicians have. He knew who he was. He knew what he stood for. He knew what he believed. And the second thing was he was willing to lose the election, right? So many people are so afraid, so many politicians, Democrats in particular, are so afraid of losing that they never bother to get around to winning. And Obama he would say, if I lose this election, he would say this in the primary to me all the time. If I lose this election, I'm just going to go back to my life. I'm going to take my kids to school in the morning. I'm going to be in the Senate, have a normal life. That's okay with me, right? Yeah. So I'm going to give it all I have, and I'm not going to change who I am because I need to win so bad, or I'm so afraid of losing or being a failure. And I think you're going to want a candidate who has those two qualities.
Interesting. Hey, Dan, great to see you. Thank you so much. Really
Good
appreciate
to see you,
it.
Jim.
And hope I can reach out to you and grab you like we did today. It just worked out perfectly. Thanks so much.
Anytime you want. Bye.
All right. Good to see you, Dan. Thanks so much. You know, and the other thing that Obama had going for him is he knew what magnets were. Have you seen this video? Let's play this. We should play this video. We should play this video.
President Xi was willing to do the rare earth thing, that's magnets. Now, nobody knows what a magnet is. If you don't have a magnet, you don't make a car. You don't make a computer. You don't make televisions and radios and all the other things. You don't make anything. It's a 30-year effort to monopolize a very important thing. Now, within 2 years, we'll have magnets, all the magnets we want, but we don't. Because of tariffs, I called. I said, listen, here's the story. You're going to play the magnet. I'm going to play the tariff on you. And for national security purposes, I raised the tariff by 100% over and above what they were paying, which was 55. So he was at 155%. Within 10 minutes, I got a call. We'd like to meet.
Yeah.
And we settled it out. And
I don't know what he's saying there. I don't think he understands that we all know what magnets are. Magnets, I mean, I used to play with magnets as a kid. And so, but anyway, the point of the moral of the story here, the point of the story, the reason why I bring it up is that man who is the president of the United States right now is doing things that just don't make a lot of sense these days. Maybe they make sense to him, but he is not making sense right now, and yet he continues to do things that are dangerous for our country, dangerous for our democracy. Just as I was talking about on yesterday's show, I'll talk about it again. He pardoned all of these election 2020 deniers who were part of an alleged scheme, I guess I should say, to overturn the 2020 election. Pardon Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, you name it. And now he is facing the decision of whether or not to commute the sentence of Ghislaine Maxwell, the co-conspirator with Jeffrey Epstein, the sex trafficker, who was moved to a minimum security prison. Ghislaine Maxwell was, and it apparently is now, because Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee revealed this, has been making the case to have her sentence commuted. I spoke with the former pardon attorney over the Justice Department, Liz Oyer, about this. We had a great conversation about this earlier in the day. Take a look, take a listen to this. And joining me now is Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney over at the Justice Department. Liz, great to see you as always. Really appreciate it. There's a lot to get into. I mean, you have a very busy, beat these days, I guess, if you want to call it that. I do want to talk about these election denier pardons that Trump put out, I guess was over the weekend. But I have to ask you about this Ghislaine Maxwell news. Apparently, the House Judiciary Committee Democrats have heard from whistleblower, and this is according to NBC News, and they are saying that Ghislaine Maxwell, and this is not a huge surprise, the co-conspirator of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, is in the process of seeking a commutation of her 20-year prison sentence from Trump. This is according to a whistleblower who has talked to House Democrats. And apparently, as part of this whistleblower information, she's getting all of this cushy treatment at this minimum security prison she was transferred to. I guess what's your reaction to that, and how does it fit in with like this pattern of sleazy and corrupt pardons that we've seen from Donald Trump since he got back into office?
Yeah, the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell is seeking a commutation at this point is not a surprise. Her lawyer has put it out there that she is angling for any advantage that she can get, having spent 2 days sitting down with the number 2 official in the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, and answering all of his questions. She has put herself in a position where she's trying to get out from under this 20-year sentence that she's facing. What's really extraordinary about this is the fact that there's serious discussion about this happening. This is something that it sounds like could possibly happen. The president has not ruled it out. He's been asked about it numerous times, and he has not said that he won't do it or that he's not considering it. The idea that somebody who has committed the types of crimes that she's committed is even in the discussion for a possible commutation of sentence is truly stunning. I am not aware of any case in history in which someone who has committed a crime involving the sexual abuse of minors has been seriously considered for a presidential pardon. Only in Trump's universe could this be a serious topic of discussion.
Right, because I mean, these are crimes that typically, I would assume, just they don't get pardoned. I mean,
They don't. They
yeah.
don't, Jim. I mean, one of the things that the Justice Department does in every single case in which there's serious discussion of a pardon is consult the victims. If there are victims, they are entitled under law to an opportunity to weigh in. And in this case, it doesn't appear that anybody in the administration has contacted the victims at any stage of these proceedings to see how they feel about this cozying up to Ghislaine Maxwell and the discussions of a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell. The victims have spoken publicly and indicated rightly and not surprisingly that they're horrified by this possibility. They're being re-traumatized constantly by the discussion of this and by the fact that the president won't rule it out. In ordinary times, under any other president, we would not even be having this discussion. There would be zero possibility that the president would even give 1 second of thought to granting a commutation of sentence to someone like Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, and not to belabor it, but I mean, there's also the element to this that Trump benefits, and in so many of these pardons that we've seen,
Yeah.
there's a benefit for him. I mean,
Yep.
I remember covering the Obama administration when Joe Biden did this too. There were pardons for nonviolent drug offenders. There's sometimes a public good in issuing pardons. That there's a
Yeah.
policy statement being made by an administration and doing pardons. This is just another part of these quid pro quo type pardons that he's doing. It's really
Exactly.
it's just very unnerving and troubling.
Yeah. The pardon power is not in the Constitution intended to be a personal privilege of the president. In the Constitution, the pardon power is intended to be for the public good. And that is the one anchoring principle of the pardon power throughout history, is that presidents are expected to use it in the interest of the public, not in their own personal interests. But Donald Trump views it as a tool that he can use freely to solve problems for himself. And in the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, he is using it as a way to get out from under the Epstein scandal that will not go away. He is dangling the possibility of a pardon to keep her on the hook to continue helping him. She has every incentive at this point to say whatever she needs to say, untethered to the truth, to help Donald Trump, because he is the one person in this country that can get her out from under this 20-year prison sentence that she's serving. So she's not credible at this point. There's no reason that we should believe anything that she is saying to exonerate Donald Trump or to implicate other people. But he's got this incredible power over her with the possibility of a pardon, and he is using that to maximum advantage in a way that is very self-serving, corrupt, and against the spirit of the constitutional pardon power.
And let's talk about, I mean, this is an interesting segue, I guess you could say, to the Rudy Giuliani pardon and these other pardons. I mean, the sheer number of these pardons, this kind of got, I don't want to say the story got buried, but it was overshadowed somewhat by the shutdown deal over in the Senate and so on. But the sheer number of people who are being pardoned, along with Rudy Giuliani, these alleged co-conspirators in the scheme to overturn the 2020 election results, it's pretty staggering. Having
Yeah.
covered that whole thing, I mean, that was such a scandal. That was such a scheme that Trump was involved in, and all these other people were involved in. And to see them just get, I mean, all of these pardons and their
Yeah.
records wiped clean, it's disturbing.
The common thread running throughout all of Trump's pardons is that if you commit crimes in the name of Donald Trump, he's got your back. He will bail you out. He's letting his supporters know that he has the power to pardon, and he intends to use it broadly for those who are loyal to him. So he is effectively messaging to everyone in his MAGA base, do what you need to do. Do what you have to do. I've got your back. Don't worry about the consequences. These recent pardons of Giuliani and others involved in the efforts to overturn the 2020 election are really unusual because those are state law crimes. Everybody in that mix who has been charged with a crime has been charged with a crime under the laws of a different state. So state laws about election security, the president has no power to pardon state law crimes. The one clearly established limitation on the pardon power in the Constitution is that it applies only to offenses against the United States, which means federal crimes. But Donald Trump does not feel bound by that limitation, and he is letting his supporters know that he believes that he can pardon any crimes he wants in any jurisdiction in the country. necessary. That is very alarming in this climate of political violence, with another cycle of midterm elections coming up a year from now. The idea that he is essentially encouraging his supporters through the use of the pardon power to commit crimes in their names if necessary is really dangerous, frankly, Jim.
Yeah. And what about the involvement of this Ed Martin character?
Yeah.
This is the guy that they tried to make the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
He could not get through. Even the Republicans were like, no, not him. You can just about make anybody else one of your appointees, but not him. And now
Yep.
he's over at the Justice Department carrying out Trump's campaign of revenge and retribution, it seems. And he's the one who announced this thing. What did you make of that? That was so wild.
It's incredibly surprising and unusual that the pardon attorney would announce pardons on
Yeah.
Twitter, no less, on X.
Yeah.
I believe that these pardons were announced by Ed Martin on X.
Yeah.
Pardons are a presidential prerogative, so the pardon attorney is not the one who generally announces them.
Yeah.
Those announcements come from the White House, but this has been Ed Martin's baby. He has tweeted throughout his tenure as pardon attorney, "No MAGA left behind." That's his mantra as pardon attorney.
Right.
He has made it known that he intends to bail out all MAGA supporters through the use of the president's pardon power, and he is delivering on that promise here. And one of the things that's so interesting about this particular pardon is it names 77 people, but it's actually written very broadly to encompass anybody who was involved in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And
Yeah.
one of those people was Ed Martin. Ed
Right.
Martin made his name as the organizer of the Stop the Steal movement. He was there on January 6th. He called January 6th an experience like Mardi Gras in Washington, D.C. So he
Unreal.
is very deeply connected with all of these folks who were pardoned, and the pardon likely applies to any crimes that Martin may have committed himself. He is a really extreme fringe character who has been given a lot of power by Donald Trump and is behind the scenes really paving the way for crimes committed by MAGA loyalists.
Yeah, and the scary thing in all of this, Liz, is that when you grant pardons, I mean, I would have to assume there's some assessment made as to whether there would be some recidivism going on, whether these people might reoffend, that you would at least analyze that. And what we've seen, I mean, since with the January 6 pardons, many of
Yeah.
those criminals reoffended, they've been accused of new crimes and so on. And I was talking about this on my show yesterday. Stuart Rhodes, the founder of
Yeah.
the Oath Keepers. I don't know if you saw this, but he announced, I think on some right-wing talk show, that he's reconstituting the Oath Keepers. And these people were involved in the insurrection attempt at the Capitol. And so it's exactly what folks like you have been saying since the beginning of all of this, that if you pardon these people, you let them off the hook, there is a massive risk of
Yeah.
recidivism, that they'll do this again.
Yeah, we have seen
Yeah.
a large number of these pardoned individuals go back to prison for new crimes. Just yesterday, I believe, a man named Jonathan Braun, who was given a commutation of sentence during Trump's first term, was sent back to prison for 27 months, and he committed all manner of new crimes. A judge found that he engaged in domestic violence type conduct, that he assaulted a nurse at a hospital with an IV pole, that he was a serial toll violator, blowing through tolls in his Ferrari, like all sorts of wild things, because Donald Trump doesn't vet these people. He doesn't look into who they are before he grants them pardons. And then they go out and they do things that are truly depraved. And not the type of conduct you'd expect from somebody who got a presidential pardon. But he doesn't vet the people. He doesn't care about merits of these cases. He cares about loyalty, and he cares about what you can do for him. Maybe it's write a check, maybe it's do him a favor, maybe it's get him out from under the Epstein crisis. That's what Donald Trump is looking for in pardon candidates. It's
Yeah.
really disgusting, frankly, Jim.
And just finally, Liz, I mean, what damage does this do to our democracy? I saw that you posted something about that. You were saying that this does damage to our democracy. This damages what people think of the pardon power, that it is just like this tool for a president to use to do corrupt things. And it eats away at the public's confidence in our Constitution and how it's supposed to work here in Washington.
Yeah, the pardon power is unfortunately the subject of legitimate criticism by the public now because it has been so misused and corrupted by this president. It's a power that was intended to be able to bestow mercy on people who really have earned and deserved it. It was used to do a lot of good by some previous presidents. President Obama commuted the sentences of nearly 2,000 nonviolent drug offenders, many of whom were serving life sentences, life in prison for low-level drug crimes. And there are a lot of people who owe their lives literally today to those commutations. Right now, there are over 15,000 people whose applications are stacked up with Ed Martin's office, legitimate applications in that pile from ordinary Americans who don't have political connections and who can't pay $1 million to go to dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and they're just being ignored. The people who really deserve this type of relief are being ignored in favor of those who can do the president a favor or cut him a fat check.
Yeah. And they're cutting a lot of those these days, no question
Yep.
about it. Liz Oyer, great to have you on. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. It's just amazing to have your expertise, and good to see you again.
Thanks so much, Jim. Good talking with you.
All right. Thanks a lot. With with all of these conversations, with all this talk of pardons, it's got me wondering, pardon me, when Donald Trump is out there. I guess this is his latest idea for tackling the affordability crisis in this country. Did you see this? He's now talking about 50-year mortgages, not 15, not 30, 50-year mortgages. Let's listen to this and we'll talk about it.
Are still out of reach. And another thing that your administration is trying to tackle, many Americans, the average age of first-time home buyers are now up to age 40, which is sad. The country you and I grew up in.
I inherited that. Look, you have to understand.
Right, but let me get to the question, though, because your housing director has proposed something that has enraged your MAGA friends, which is this 50-year mortgage idea. So a significant MAGA backlash, calling it a giveaway to the banks and simply prolonging the time it would take for Americans to own a home outright. Is that really a good idea?
It's not even a big deal. I mean, you go from 40 to 50 years, and what it means is you pay something less from 30. That some people had a 40, and then now they have a 50. All it means is you pay less per month. You pay it over a longer period of time. It's not like a big factor. It might help a little bit. But the problem was that Biden did this. He increased the interest rates, and I have a lousy Fed person who's going to be gone in a few months.
Oh, boy. A 50-year mortgage. Why not a 75-year mortgage? Why not a 100-year mortgage? Just pay off that. If the average age of a person getting a home now is 40, you can just pay that mortgage off when you're 90. That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Or why don't we go for a 75-year mortgage and you just pay that when you're 115 years old, or the 100-year mortgage and pay that off when you're 140. You're damn right it's a giveaway to the banks. Kudos. I can't believe I'm saying this, but kudos to Laura Ingraham, who was pressing him a little bit on an absolute batshit crazy idea. 50-year mortgages. These are the kinds of economic schemes that they come up with in failing countries, in countries with economies that are going down the tubes. But again, this is from somebody who, as he was telling Laura Ingraham during this interview, all of that gold in the Oval Office is real gold. Did you see this? We were playing this earlier.
So these aren't like from Home Depot or something?
No, this is not Home Depot stuff.
No, not stuff you buy.
This is not Home Depot. The whole thing with gold.
Why not
You
silver?
you can't imitate gold.
You can't imitate gold, but apparently you can imitate a competent president of the United States, which is what Donald Trump is doing these days. Of course, that crap comes from Home Depot. And of course, I mean, I'm just picturing in my mind some poor staffers out in the driveway outside the Oval Office with the gold spray can, and they're just, they're just spraying the shit out of those things that you buy at Home Depot. You go into the hardware store, you go into the giant hardware store, Home Depot, and they've got the shelves of like all of those things that you can glue to your wall, or you stick them to the wall, or you drill them into, if you're really committed, you drill them into the wall. But you got to get that intern, the poor White House intern, out there in the driveway, just spraying the shit out of those things. You have to understand, Johnny. He wants 2 coats. He wants 2 coats of the gold on that leaf thing that he's put over the fireplace in the Oval Office. Pardon me. I beg your pardon. What is happening? What is happening over at the Oval Office these days? He doesn't know what magnets are. And we were playing this. Let's play the magnets thing. We don't have to play the whole thing, but can we play the magnets thing one more time?
It's so, President Xi was willing to do the rare earth thing, that's magnets. Now, nobody knows what a magnet is. If you don't have a magnet, you don't make a car. You don't make a computer. You don't make televisions and radios and all the other things. You don't make anything.
I can't stop. I'm sorry. You have to stop. Oh my gosh. You have to stop. I'm sorry. I know it's a Tuesday, but the magnets, they stick together. That's what a magnet is. That's what a magnet is. He knows this, right? And we realize that this is the president of the United States talking about 50-year mortgages, not fully understanding what a magnet is or does. I thought he went to an Ivy League school. I guess he is the OG Nepo baby, isn't he? He's the OG Nepo baby. But he's insisting that all of that gold shit in the Oval Office is real. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a president of the United States is off his goddamn rocker. He's off his goddamn rocker. And I know all these politicians are coming back to town to talk about reopening the government. But, somebody ought to be talking about maybe a bigger priority right now, which is getting Donald Trump some help. The president of the United States needs help. He thinks that people don't know what magnets are. He thinks that we don't understand that the gold shit in the Oval Office is just that. It's just gold shit. It's just gold shit. And for the life of me, I'm waiting for it to dawn on somebody. Somebody inside MAGA, one of these sycophants maybe that they have in the Oval Office asking questions these days. I mean, could somebody ask him about these 50-year mortgages and have him explain how that is of any benefit to anybody? I mean, really, that one boggles the mind. That one doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When are you supposed to pay off the mortgage? When you're 112? That one I don't understand. I mean, I just, we got to get a grip, folks. We got to get a grip on this guy because something ain't right. And so I just want to, we need the Louvre heister to steal those gold pieces. Exactly. And so I just end this show by saying, I beg your pardon, Mr. President. I beg your pardon. My thanks to James Carville. My thanks to Dan Pfeiffer. My thanks to Liz Oyer. Thanks to all of you for watching. Still reporting from Washington. I'm going to go play with some magnets now. I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening. I'll see you next time.